Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you're back. Yes, we had a failed prediction, and this video is not going to be going through and making excuses for why the video was wrong or the prediction was wrong. This one is more about lessons learned so that we can make more accurate predictions later. As you know, the last video I made a prediction that the Chiefs would lose the game, 49ers would win. Obviously, I was wrong. Now, why? Why was that wrong? Can we not predict the future? Is that not something that humanity can do? Certainly, there have been people in the past that have predicted the future. Nostradamus, arguably. I mean, we can battle this out. I'm going to put my talking notes down here so you can see them. Not to bore you, but you probably may not even be able to read it, so small of text. But anyway, we're going to be talking about astrology, I Ching, DreamBot, and how to make better predictions based on what we learned from the Super Bowl. So I think a lot of us know or realize that there's predictive dreams. Most of us have had a precognitive dream where they dream about some event and then it happens later. And even if it's not at a headline level. We've heard about Nostradamus. We've heard about crystal balls and psychic material. Well, have you heard of Project August? So the National Dream Center, which was started by George Ure, he started those for predictive dreaming and to be able to predict future events. Project August was in 2014, and we went out at an international level. We got international dreamers, and all of them intended to dream about a future headline. So the specific intention was, this was about April, starting in April of 2014. Everybody who participated had to go before sleep. They would intend to dream. They would say, I will dream about the biggest headline in August of 2014. So then we would publish, we would look at the dream material. They would then, in the morning, submit their dream to the database, and we would be able to collect the dreams, interpret them, and then make predictions later based on that dream material. Well, ultimately, before August showed up, we had 119 headlines predicted for the month of August, and then 101 of those predictions came true. I want to give you one example. There's lots of examples, but this one I thought was the best because it shows perfect match on a headline, but a mismatch in another part of the headline. So the headline was, Outbreak claims 1,200 lives in eastern Montana. Now, if you can imagine making that prediction months in advance, and this is before Ebola ever came out. Ebola was 2014, but it didn't start coming out in the news until July. This prediction was made in May. In May 2014, we said in August, there will be a headline that says 1,200 lives claimed by an outbreak. Outbreak claims 1,200 lives. All right. We were looking at Montana as the target area. Well, in August, the actual headline was Ebola claims 1,200 lives. The problem is it wasn't in Montana, it wasn't in the U.S. There was only a couple cases in Dallas, I think. But the 1,200 lives were in Sri Lanka or somewhere in Africa on the coast. So it was completely wrong, location completely wrong. But you can't deny, how in the world did the dreamers obtain an outbreak, first of all, because that's not an everyday, that doesn't happen every month. Right now we're looking at the coronavirus, but anyway, the dreamers definitely saw it in advance, but they also saw exactly 1,200 lives. I think that's absolutely crazy. But the point is that you can have specific details, and in my mind, based on the Project August results, you can make future predictions and very accurate future predictions. That prediction itself, 1,200 lives taken by an outbreak, was an accuracy of 4 out of 5. So you got the outbreak, you had exactly 1,200 lives, but the location was completely wrong. And one of the people, when I made this briefing to the International Association for the Study of Dreams, IASD conference in 2015, somebody was listening to my briefing and was on his phone, and he found a city in that close country. I think it was Sri Lanka, but don't quote me on that. But he found a city in there with an epicenter of the Ebola that sounded like Montana. So it was pretty cool. But anyway, so that would speak more to the interpretation of the dreams and not the problem with the dream, if you will. All right. So we know, first of all, that the future can be predicted. Its accuracy is questionable, of course. But what does astrology do? What does the I Ching predict? I contend that astrology and the I Ching have to do with certainly some events, but I don't think you can get all that detailed with the events. And I don't think you're going to see a lot of professional astrologers making a guess on which team is going to win. Why don't they do that? I think it's because the presence of free will, not the lack of free will, the presence of free will. Free will can't be determined ahead of time because we don't have all the data and you don't know what the subconscious material is doing. Subconscious material is a very big topic that we're going to cover here in a second. And one of the keys, at least from Edgar Cayce's standpoint, you have to be in the subconscious realm. You have to know what's programmed in the subconscious before you have any hope of getting a future event predicted. All right, so I'm going to talk about that later, but what about free will? Can free will be predicted ahead of time? I think you're going to have a hard time doing that because you don't know what the emotions are at the time, the feelings, the hippocampus, which gives you kind of that flurry of emotional fight or flight kind of thing. And all bets are off when in that moment of action. What is the person going to decide? I don't know. We don't know. So I'm thinking that the astrology and the I Ching are mainly having to do with energy. And we know the I Ching is more to do with energy changes, which is, I think, a brilliant combination with astrology because as different planets are aligning and coming in and out of influence, the energy changes. And so it's all that change of energy that's very critical in knowing. If you know what those energy changes are, then you can accentuate your behaviors and even free will to maximize the benefit of each. Like if the energy is yin, then you don't want to be pounding through obstacles and trying to achieve stuff. It's just too watery, too emotional, too heavy in order to get that done. It's better to wait until the energy is yang and you go out and have that extra oomph when you go do your projects. But I think this has to do with the issues with the Super Bowl, free will, that is. Free will, we've got hundreds of different players and coaches and people helping with the team. They all have their free will, but ultimately in the game, at the moment of, they're running down the field and they have to, do they have the awareness to see a person they should be blocking, etc. And it depends on how much awareness they have. If they're lacking awareness, then their free will is going to be occluded only to over here in this quadrant, for example. I know I didn't give you a specific example, but the level of their awareness affects their free will. If they don't have all the awareness that they need, they can make a shallow decision. And a bunch of other things affect the free will. So I think the free will issue is the big key to the Super Bowl. So what is the difference then between Project August that was so successful and this Super Bowl prediction? One main thing, intentional dreaming. If you remember, look back on the Super Bowl video, we included the dreams. We included the dreams via DreamBot, but there was no intention behind those. In other words, the DreamBot just goes out and reads dreams. when we did Project August, we had intentions to have what kind of flavor what do you want this dream for? And it cages the subconscious. If we know that dreams are all subconscious material or heavily in the subconscious, then and you can influence your subconscious to give you information such as solving a life problem or figuring out the future, or even getting skills like getting lucid in your dream or fighting the monster or whatever. You can program that in there, but you have to program the subconscious. In other words, you have to make it a habit. So that was the big difference between the Super Bowl prediction. We didn't have any intentional dreaming behind it. We just saw that people were dreaming about Miami or waves could be both the coastlines or San Francisco, et cetera, et cetera. But there's no free will in there. There's no decision making, and there's no subconscious definition of what's going to be happening with a specific event because there was no intention behind it. It was just a random dream. I mean, very important, but not for the purposes of predicting the Super Bowl. So how could we have made that better? Well, obviously get dreamers to specifically intend on who is going to win the Super Bowl. So we want to include the astrology of that. That's very important to know what the energies are going to be available. And we would love to know what the I Ching is because we want to know how the energy is going to change during the game. But then we'd also want to know intentional dreams and dream material. Even if so if you intend on a dream and you get a dream that's not really related at all to the intention. So let's say you dreamed of a silver cup when you were intending on dreaming about the Super Bowl. Well, that doesn't mean that you failed the dream. You still write that down. You still analyze it because it could be very meaningful. And that's how we went through with Project August. But you take the subconscious material from the intentional dream, and you've got some powerful ways to look at what the subconscious can do. Now, I keep going back to the subconscious because now we get into this bigger realm, more definition, instead of just free will, which there's a lot of considerations for free will. What's more powerful is the subconscious and the programming. Did you know that even the music that you listen to is programming your subconscious? What your parents told you as kids, what your teacher is saying, all that's in the subconscious. You may not be really aware of those things and those memories and those events and those statements and those songs, but they're in there and they're like programs. There's also routines in the subconscious. So, let's just go to the autonomic nervous system. You don't purposefully beat your heart every, half second to keep the blood flowing through the body. It just does it automatically. That's subconscious material. Do you know that you can control your heart, but it takes a lot of practice and it takes a biofeedback mechanism. But you can control your breathing. Most of us don't because we don't need to. It still breathes. But when you do that, you can control the thing that is mostly subconscious. And actually, when you control your breathing purposefully, you touch the vagus nerve, which kicks you into parasympathetic nervous system. I can talk about all this more extensively in another module. But basically, the subconscious controls all the autonomic functions. It controls your flows of probably 10 layers of thoughts at any streaming moment. It controls all your emotional stuff. I mean, most of the emotions that we're experiencing, we don't even recognize that. We're not even aware of it. It's below the level of awareness. And part of mindfulness training is to be more aware of those emotions, the thoughts. Intuition is part of that. So if routines are a behavioral subconscious habit, then obsessions would be a mental construct of the same. Obsessions, it's hard to not think about anything else. Well, that takes neurons, but it's very subconscious. Bottom line, though, talking about free will and the ability to predict future events, subconscious is much more powerful because the subconscious contains so much influence on how the person behaves. Most of our behaviors are unconscious too. You take your car and go to work, I guarantee you your mind will float off. And when your mind floats away, not literally, but figuratively, you start thinking about other things. You're driving the car still. What is driving the car? Your subconscious. Your subconscious can do all these habit patterns while you go do other business, like figuring out a problem of from work and preparing for that, or talking on your phone, or whatever. So you can do two things at once only through if one of the activities is subconscious. But people like Edgar Cayce hammered home the importance of knowing what the subconscious is, not just for the routines and the programs in it, indicating the free will, but also for tapping into the superconscious. And he talked about how it's kind of like the collective unconscious. Carl Jung talked about the collective unconscious. Edgar Cayce is a superconscious, and you can only get there via the subconscious. And once you're through that subconscious layers, you're going to know a lot about what you weren't aware of before. And so, let's talk about like an atheistic view of predictive dreams. So they don't obviously honor like a woo-woo source to show them the way of the future, especially like a god showing them, the future through the dream. So what they say, some of them use the subconscious in it, and they say that the dream comes in, or you dream about different things in the subconscious. You wake up aware of it, and then you go do it because you've been programmed by the dream. So it's actually reversal. So in that case, you're creating your reality instead of predicting your reality. But the bottom line, it doesn't really matter why we have the subconscious. It's important to know what's in it, the subconscious material. And that way you can have a better guess on what the free will is and what reality is being created or predicted. Doesn't matter. Predicting, creating, does the same thing, same basic thing if we include all the different theories on our mental construct and how the future is created. So let's just talk about the bottom line here. But actually, before I summarize, let me talk about today's DreamBot. And I do this because we can know the subconscious at a collective level, so we can kind of know where the humanity is heading. So I can get my highlighter out, and I can show you at the top of the run, the DreamBot run, in the word increasing, and then down lower, another word increase, and then opened. So you've got three words. I didn't even really read it that fast. Increasing, increased, and opened. So all of that looks like a Jupiter influence. Remember, these aren't intentional dreams, or we don't know what the intention is behind the dreams. They're not dreams themselves. It's just the DreamBot goes out and looks for dreams, counts the different words that are there. So just for some reason, with a pretty high surge score of 42, the word increasing is more prevalent in people's dreams, in the collective dreams, than any other word. So that's really meaningful. And so if more people are dreaming about the increasing and optimism and openness, well, then that's kind of the close future that we're headed towards. I know that's not definitive. It's kind of nebulous in this case, but I'll show you some more linguistics as we go along here. I hope to get a lot more of these predictions made so that we can continue to learn and hone our skills and get more accurate. But this is part of what the Collective Dreams and the National Dream Center was intended to be anyways, predicting the future and talking about the future. So bottom line on this particular video, the aspects of the future can be predicted. We know this with fairly with good certainty. More accurate are knowing what energies are going to be present. That's your astrology, both kinds, or all the different kinds, sidereal, tropical, Vedic. They're going to know what the energies are present at any time. And you can go to any date and know what energies are going to be there. So that's what the whole basis of a natal chart is, knowing the influences that are going to stamp that person's life. Now, in terms of predicting, it's less accurate on how people will react to that energy. That's the concept of free will. And to know that can't be ascertained ahead of time. We can make a guess, but that's all it'll be, is a guess on how people react. So should we reduce the people's or the level of free will in any particular guess? Well, it's impossible to do that with the Super Bowl. I mean, all we know is that the energies were there. How did they react? Well, the Chiefs, had a lot of mistakes, but they ended up winning the game. In varying accuracy for future events is the subconscious material, and that's been hypothesized from so many different viewpoints. If you know what the subconscious material is, and by that I mean the programs, the routines of reaction. So over time, some people react in the same way, seem like every single time. So someone who's in Wimbledon has all these sub programs in their subconscious. That's the only way to get to Wimbledon, is if those skills of, swinging the racket and knowing what the spin rates are and how much power to apply and all that, and what to look for, all that subconscious. If you're thinking at all, you're not going to make it. You're not going to be successful because it has to be now. Thinking is slow. Conscious awareness is slow. Subconscious is immediate. And that's where your free will is. Free will is going to be mostly subconscious. That's why if you know more of the subconscious, you have a better idea of predicting. So how are we going to move forward here at the National Dream Center? I hope to continue predicting events like this so that we can maybe test out new strategies, new techniques, see how they do, but it's always going to be a test. I'm not throwing you the future just for shits and giggles, but this is more of real, trying to figure out a method that works to be able to predicting future events. The surf report's going to continue. We're going to be focusing on energetic influences. How you react is up to you, how your free will plays out, and therefore the outcome is partly you and partly the energy. Ultimately, it's you. It's how you react to the energy. So if you know what the energy is, you can make the behaviors comply with a more successful outcome. We're going to attempt to get more subconscious material or hypothesize about it if we have to do a prediction of this kind of sort where you've got like hundreds of different people's free will involved. So we're going to have to include that. And then we're going to just continue refining our accuracy, continue testing events, getting lessons learned. We need your feedback and the dreams, intentional and not. We're going to be using those dreams, like I talked about, to increase the effectiveness of any of the predictions that we do, including surf reports. All right, that's about it. I didn't want to drone on too long, but I wanted to get you, possible reasons why the failed prediction. Now, of course, some naysayers are going to say that you can't predict the future. That's a bunch of woo-woo and all that. I don't believe that. Obviously, I don't believe that, or else I wouldn't be running the National Dream Center. So that's a wrap. Let's talk some more about these different techniques and strategies, and let's try to predict the future. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a good week. We'll see you hopefully on Wednesday for another surf report.